I believe we should put an end to this child trafficking, human trafficking in general. This is something serious, and I find it ridiculous about how all these Black Lives Matter movement people were protesting, they were out in the streets, big crowds, yet they can't be here for these individuals who are being sold into this modern day slavery, basically. And I just find it very ridiculous. We should all be here, it should be on the news media, this should be social media, it should blow up, and I don't know why it didn't, honestly.
And over there at that crowd, they were starting to break into the houses here. Parents on scene are telling me that houses here are alleged sex trafficking homes where sex trafficking is happening inside. And Jim, if you want to pan to the left, I want to show the amount of police, Milwaukee police, who are here dressed in riot gear. They've been walking back and forth on this street, mainly watching what the crowd's doing. They've seen them breaking into these houses, and they'll kind of walk towards the house for a moment, but then walk back to their line. So a lot of this it seems to be being allowed to have happen. Now, earlier you can see from our video, originally when we arrived on scene, police were raiding a home down the road near Lloyd Street, and allegedly before we arrived, they had arrested some people out of that home, but things quickly became tense after police had boarded up that property, and people in the crowd started smashing windows of the house that officers had boarded up, trying to break in there. Now, that house, according to people in the crowd here, is known as a sex trafficking house, that they believe one or both of these two girls had been seen here a few days ago, and family members say that the girls have been found. I did interview a family member here on scene. They told me that the girls have been found by family this afternoon. Police, however, are not confirming. They say that family has not gotten a hold of them, and the people here are still here upset, even though they've heard that these girls have been found, because they don't believe police have been doing their due diligence in these investigations, searching for missing girls now or in the past. And they also want all of these houses on the street investigated. Listen to what one had to say earlier.
If these girls went missing 2 days ago, where the hell was the Amber Alert? Because I never got one. I never saw one to my phone. I never got alerted about any missing kids. So where was the Amber Alert? This entire city is failing our black children. And that's facts. This entire city is, from the top down, and everybody needs to go.
The protesters marched in the streets overnight, and the police chief told us that at least 7 police officers were hurt, 1 firefighter was hurt, and additionally 3 people were shot by civilians during all of this. And it was all near a home at 40th and Lloyd, and that's where all of this unrest began before the sun went down. Take a look at some of this video that we have that shows a house there after it was set ablaze by an angry crowd. We're told that relatives and members of the community believe that this home was linked to an investigation related to missing teenagers, and the director of the city's Office of Violence Prevention tells us that the house has a history and that people there were upset for really 2 reasons. One, with what allegedly has happened inside that home, possibly related to sex trafficking, and then the other reason being that people were upset with the way that police have investigated that home over the years. We have learned that police have been called to that home at least 30 times, more than 30 times in the past few years, several times in the past few days to investigate incidents. You see that video there once again of the unrest unfolding overnight. Now, when police responded yesterday, they had been already investigating this case of the missing teenagers. They responded to a shots fired call there yesterday, and they also learned that somebody was trying to gain access to that home. During the investigation, police say that crowd grew angry, saying police do not do enough when it comes to black children when they go missing in the community. And while that home was burning, police say the crowd threw bricks at them, and eventually police had to deploy gas as the unrest grew out of control. At one point, people in the crowd, not police, began shooting. Police say at least 3 people were shot, and we know at least 2 of those people were teenagers.
Imagine how difficult it is for the fire department, or it was for the fire department, to put out a fire when there's bricks and all other type of projectiles being thrown at not only the police but the fire department. So this was a pretty chaotic scene.
And we want our children and our families to be safe. And so, you know, it's our hope that we get to the bottom of what was going on there.
You hear the police chief there describing the scene as chaotic. Now, protests then continued late into the night. They marched all over Milwaukee's north side.
This is not going to help. The community feel like this is street justice. And by them burning down their house, now the police can't do their job of investigating, getting evidence.
A total of 10 officers were hurt, including 3 who were hit with bricks. A firefighter was also hurt. Police say there is no evidence of the home being part of a sex trafficking ring or anything along those lines.
The teacher at Milwaukee's Hamilton High School charged with human trafficking and sexual assault.
And it all started back in 2017 when prosecutors say Mothershead met the woman online at AsianDating.com. He traveled to the Philippines and promised when she came to the United States, life would be beautiful. He promised to enroll her children in school, take care of her family, get married, and pick her up at the airport with roses. But it allegedly took a drastic turn fast. The complaint says he didn't have roses, but instead took the woman and her son to his messy car and handed them cleaning gloves and a mask. From there, the complaint alleges he sexually assaulted the woman and told her to clean his home constantly. She says if she didn't, he would threaten to send her back to the Philippines and throw things around the house. After she made Thanksgiving dinner, she alleges Mothershead would not allow her and her son to eat and told her Thanksgiving is for Americans and they are not Americans. Why would somebody come up with these type of allegations?
Okay. Listen, it's a visa fraud. It's immigration fraud. She made up these things about me because she wants to stay in the country. I did none of these things.
The woman called police in December of last year, and she and her son were taken to a shelter. At Hamilton High School, where he works, parents were disturbed by the allegations.
I'm actually shocked.
Mothershead maintained his innocence. You didn't tell her she couldn't leave or...
Never, nothing. They're all lies. Okay? Completely innocent. Thank you. Goodbye.
Tom Durian reporting. NPS did send us a statement this afternoon saying Mothershead has been placed on unpaid leave pending a final resolution to this matter.
Despite all of us being on lockdown, traffickers are not stopping in what they're doing, and they have just adjusted their business model.
Now in 2019, the state's human trafficking hotline got more than 700 tips. So remember, that's 700. So far in 2020, the line has gotten more than 500. You know, it's only August, by the way. While the monthly average is slightly higher, the TBI cannot confirm if it's due to the pandemic or not. But you know what? If you suspect someone may be a victim of human trafficking, you are asked to call the Tennessee Human Trafficking Hotline. I've got that for you now. It's also on your screen. 1-855-55-TN-HTH.
Troopers say 40-year-old Steve Hargrove of Laverne, Tennessee is facing charges of promoting human trafficking of a victim under the age of 18. Last night, KSP found a car matching the description of a vehicle in a missing persons case pulling to the Circle K on Highway 54. The teen victim was found in the car with Hargrove. The victim told state police she had met up with Hargrove several times in Davis County as well as other states for sex and was passed off by Hargrove to other men. His bond is listed at $50,000 on the Davis County Jail's website.
Please, till the day I die, tell this message that we can overcome.
A voice rising up, calling on others to listen.
People need to understand, just because there's a woman that's a prostitute on the street, that's not her choice.
Jennifer Beagle of Simpsonville knows from personal experience.
I never once as a child said, I want to grow up and be a prostitute.
Sunday, she shared how she became a survivor of sex trafficking as a tool to educate.
90% of children that end up in sex trafficking knew their first assailant.
You can't just put a Band-Aid on these issues.
One of the nonprofits, Safe Passage, is trying to build a home for children in Kentucky who have been trafficked, something the group says Kentucky doesn't have.
It is inhumane to steal a baby, to steal a child, to steal an adult, and sell them for any means. It is downright evil. It is wrong.
A wrong Beagle is trying to right in Kentucky and across the country.
7 men arrested and charged with promoting human trafficking and prohibited use of electronics to procure a minor. LMPD says there's one big thing they all had in common.
The biggest shock to kind of my senses was they were all dads. and a few of them were fathers of daughters.
LMPD tells us 115 individual times they were contacted by people responding to one of the 6 ads that they posted over 2 days.
A 16-year-old, which was the age that we had used for this operation, cannot legally solicit herself for prostitution. So that's where the human trafficking part falls in.
And over 12 times, they had eyes on potential perpetrators who ended up driving away from the hotel they set up operations at. But the men who they say came inside were greeted by police.
They were female officers. She answered the door, opened it. They exchanged pleasantries. He stepped in, and they were instantly apprehended at that point. It touched home with me, and I hope it does with everybody else, that this is a real concern. It's a real issue. It's here.
LMPD says the sting was funded by a federal grant for a total of $750,000 over a 3-year period, and this is just year 1.
Be prepared to see more of these in the future.
Investigators are confident the charges will stick, and this won't be viewed as entrapment because when someone stops communications with them, they never re-engage.
These 3 men have been arrested and accused of operating a sex trafficking ring out of East Whiteland Township in Chester County. One of their alleged victims is a 14-year-old girl, something that Chester County DA Deborah Ryan says makes this case personal.
Or anything where children behind closed doors are treated in a way that is unconscionable, like this has been, is something that we have been working our whole careers to root out.
The suspects are accused of enticing, coercing, and then subjecting young women into a life of sexual servitude. The 14-year-old victim was rescued by police on May 30th at this Wawa in East Whiteland Township after she was able to flee her captors and come into contact with local authorities. She then told investigators that she and at least one other victim, identified as an 18-year-old woman, were held against their will for weeks. During that time, the victims say they were forced to have sex with as many as 4 or 5 people on a daily basis. Police have also arrested 5 alleged clients of this illegal sex ring. Meanwhile, the ringleaders face a string of charges, including trafficking of minors, kidnapping, and rape.
We are committed to getting justice for these victims, and we will hold all of these individuals accountable for their criminal acts to the fullest extent of the law.
A woman injured after jumping from an 18-wheeler along Interstate 20 tells Cisco police she was kidnapped. The Cisco Police Department now says they believe the kidnappers plan to use her in a sex trafficking operation. Right now they're looking for a green semi with a white stripe pulling a white box-type trailer. They say there are 3 men inside the semi along with another woman they believe is in, quote, grave danger. The woman jumped from the truck around 9 p.m. Wednesday near the Flying J's Denny's on I-20 in Cisco. Anyone with any information is asked to call this number. It's 254-629-1728.
This is just good versus evil to me.
An evil that Ashley Pugh, a mother of 5, is willing to fight.
I've said it a million times, I will literally fight until my last breath for these children to be saved.
And she's not alone.
Just because they're not my children or my neighbor's children doesn't make them any less important. They need to be found and they need to be fought for.
Many adults, women and men, have fallen victim too.
Sarah and Ashley want to spread awareness to show just how horrible human trafficking really is. And after doing a little bit of research, I saw that the numbers are just as bad.
In 2020, there have already been 561 cases reported in Texas. About 50,000 people in the U.S. are affected every year. Human trafficking brings in almost $150 billion a year worldwide, and $99 billion comes from commercial sexual exploitation. That's why Sarah created this Facebook page called East Texas Moms Against Human Trafficking.
It's not exclusively for moms or even women. It's just a group that we would like to have so that anybody that feels connected to this issue and wants to do something proactive will join us.
People who want to help save lives and also
speak up for the ones who cannot speak for themselves.
It's in Westlake, it's in Beechwood, it's certainly in East Cleveland.
A problem throughout Northeast Ohio. The number of search warrants served in cracking these cases tripled in just the past 3 years, according to law enforcement.
5 on your side, investigator Joe Paganakis explains police uncovered 2 more high-profile cases just in the last week.
Well, sadly, Ohio is maintaining its status in the top 10 when it comes to calls to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. 2019 stats just released show Ohio is 4th, only behind Texas, California, and Florida. That education and awareness is critical in scaling back this horrific problem.
Young ladies, young boys, adults being trafficked throughout the city every day.
Cuyahoga County Detective John Morgan says the county's Human Trafficking Task Force is making a difference, recovering 34 victims of trafficking in 2017, 45 victims in 2018, and 52 victims in 2019. But much more needs to be done.
We don't have the resources to combat it the way that we would like to. However, we are making a serious dent.
And there have been school-aged children who have been trafficked out of their homes.
Cleveland Municipal Judge Marilyn Cassidy has set up a special docket for the growing number of human trafficking cases, hosting this community meeting in East Cleveland with black-on-black crime on Wednesday. The problem hit a peak last week after a grand jury indicted Maple Heights pastor Randy Brown for compelling prostitution of a minor as part of a human trafficking investigation. And police say 8 men arrested in a human trafficking sting in Trumbull County and charged with trying to buy sex online. Cassidy believes awareness is critical.
We do think we're a little bit ahead of the game in terms of educating the public. You're going to have more people calling to say, I'm suspecting something might be going on here.
And so, reporting cases of suspected human trafficking is critical.
Ohio priest arrested on sex trafficking charges.
We suspect, again, that there are other victims in this community and in others where Father Michael Zacharias has served. So we're asking again for individuals to contact us at 216-622-6842 or the FBI's main contact number. This is obviously a sad day, not only for the church family, for the community, but it also marks the beginning of healing for those victimized by Michael Zacharias. Again, thank you for being here, and at this time I'll take just a couple of questions.
Can you talk about how this investigation came about, what led you to him and the arrest this morning?
Sure, I won't get into too many details, but I will say that this information related to this investigation came as a result of another unrelated investigation and our review of evidence in that investigation.
Were some of the victims from St. Michael's Parish here?
Yes, we believe that's accurate. Or we also believe that there are victims elsewhere, so we don't want to suggest that it's simply just St. Michael's. But again, that's why we're asking for individuals that may have been victimized to come forward.
Where else has Father Michael Zacharias served?
So we believe there's multiple other parishes where he served. I know there are St. Catherine's in Toledo, St. Peter's Parish in Mansfield, St. Mary of the Assumption in Van Wert, St. Anne's and St. Joseph in Fremont, and then of course St. Michael's. And that may not be all inclusive, but those are the ones that we do know from just our initial investigation.
Can you talk about the significance of this home, who lived here?
Well, this was the residence occupied by Father Michael Zacharias.
And did he live with anyone else from the church here?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did any of the offenses occur in the house here?
I don't know that. Investigation is ongoing, so I don't want to specify where the incidents occurred, but that information will be forthcoming likely throughout the investigation.
Can you give us a broad sketch of how the offenses occurred, kind of the method of operation, so to speak?
I don't want to get into too many specifics, but I will say that based on our investigation, it appears that individuals were targeted and they were groomed over a long period of time for continued gratification.
Where's the father now?
He's in federal custody now, and he's being processed.
And what's next for him? What's the next step?
Well, he'll have his initial appearance sometime this afternoon, at which time we believe the complaint will be unsealed.
And where will that appear?
It'll be unsealed.
The term grooming, I think I get a general idea, but can you kind of tell us what it means, what kind of behavior it refers to?
Well, it refers to individuals that have been targeted for sexual purposes and then have been brought along over time to sort of feel more comfortable with the predator, and then for that individual then to complete the sexual act based on years, months, and sometimes years of grooming.
What agencies make up the task force?
So a variety of different agencies. So we have the FBI, we have numerous local agencies, and some state agencies, and it's a long list of state and local partners.
How many victims are you aware of?
I'm sorry?
How many victims are you aware of?
Well, we have 2 in the complaint that are alleged, but we believe that there are others, and that's why we're asking for anybody to have with contact, that have had contact, unwanted contact, sexual contact with Father Zacharias to come forward. Again, that number is 216-622-6842. So it's imperative that those other individuals out there come forward. And again, your contact with us will remain strictly confidential.
Do you know the gender of the victims at all? Was it men?
I do, but I won't go into age range. Age is it's a long age range because it started years ago, and so it's progressed.
And how long has your investigation been on for?
So actually, this is a fairly it's a quick investigation in those terms. As we said, this information came as a result of another investigation. So obviously, we will not stop here. So we'll continue to pursue what other victims are out there and hope that we can seek justice on their behalf.
So the state legislature in 2019, they amended the mandatory training for child sex abuse to also include training about human trafficking prevention. We got a first look at that training and how it's being adapted for a very unique start to the school year. As students come back to class, thousands of Utah teachers and school staff will be armed with new skills to detect children in danger.
We can educate parents, but we really need to educate the people who see the kids in the schools as well so that they can identify it when they see it.
This is part of the new human trafficking education training from Protect Utah.
Instead of having to, do in-person trainings, we're able to still train thousands of people.
In the age of COVID, the training has gone online, and it's for more than just teachers.
A lot of times, some of these bus drivers and cafeteria workers are in a unique situation to be able to recognize some of these more subtle signs.
It's a worry and a concern.
Elizabeth Katoa is a health educator with Davis School District. She says knowing the signs of human trafficking, like students having multiple cell phones or changes in behavior, is more important now than ever.
There's a lot of concern for all of us just because of the time kids are spending alone.
This course is part of a new state law that mandates human trafficking training for educators. But Katoa says the training helped her be better aware of situations that need to be reported immediately.
Being left with the internet, and there's so many more dangers, I think, that maybe parents aren't even aware of.
Yesterday, the Broward County Human Trafficking Task Force arrested 21-year-old Kiara Nunez in Hollywood and 19-year-old Alexandra Ramirez in Coral Springs. Both defendants are in federal custody and now face federal charges.
This bus was across 20 counties, right around the metro area. Channel 2's Gwinnett County Bureau Chief Tony Thomas joins us now live with the results. Tony.
Jovita, the U.S. Marshals usually focus on finding the hardest to catch criminals, but over the last couple of weeks, they've been focusing on children. Some, they say, hiding in plain sight, others being hidden by others. Director of the U.S. Marshals Service in town today saying finding these kids more important to him than finding the criminals.
We can look to the remoteness of the location.
For 2 weeks, U.S. Marshals fugitive hunters and other agencies scoured north and middle Georgia.
We'll try to get you something to drink, okay?
Looking for missing and exploited children. Marshals Service Director Donald Washington says in all, 26 endangered children were recovered, another 13 found. Children authorities fear had already or were potential victims of sex trafficking.
One missing child is worth thousands, in my mind, of fugitives that we go out and get.
The operation spanned across 20 Georgia counties. Sources say children were found in Gwinnett, Fulton, Clayton, Forsyth, among other places. 9 suspects were arrested. Authorities only identified 3, including Kirk Waters in Newton County.
He was arrested for being while in the company of one of our recovered children. He was charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon.
Waters, Stanson Causey, and others are now behind bars as state prosecutors step in to handle the cases and medical and social workers focus on helping traumatized kids.
How many lives that we have saved and will have a new and fresh start is how we will measure success.
Other major cities across the country have similar operations underway, although I'm told some of them have yet to be completed.
And if we're divided on this issue because of all these different things being put in front of us, we're never going to be able to help move the needle forward on it. Over 30 million people being trafficked each year. Over a third of those are being children. So there has to be something that happens within our hearts and our minds that goes beyond petty issues and petty differences, because it's such a great issue. There's over $150 billion from this industry every single year being generated. And we got to start asking those questions. How is this going unnoticed? How is there no attention being brought to this? How are agencies and law enforcement not given the resources to be able to put an end to this? And then being that it's a global issue, America has to wake up and realize we are a big problem with it because of our desires. America has to wake up and realize that we're a big problem in this. You know, sometimes Americans, we can be so blinded to our nobility because of what we project on ourselves. But the reality is America's the number one consumer of child pornography in the world. We're the number one consumer of sex crimes in the world. We're the number one consumer of all those different things that lead into children being trafficked. And it starts with our addiction to pornography. It starts with our addiction to lustfulness and all these different things. So one of the biggest ways we end human trafficking is we kill that desire, we kill that demand. We get back to our morality and our values as a people. We learn to look at our women and love our women. You know, we got to stop how we sexualize women and how we treat women, and we put them out there. This is for our mothers, our sisters, our aunts, our grandmothers, our daughters, and all these women that are affected by this. We're talking 71% of the people being trafficked are women. 71% are the victims, and over 90% of the people who are consuming are men. So until the men start to be real men and get past these different things and where we demonize the women when they become a victim, and then we also project this on women and sexualize them, until we move past that, this is always going to be an issue, because we got to kill the demand first. After we kill the demand, then we bring attention and we're aware of what's going on. And when we see the signs, we report on the signs. We gotta stop being on the sidelines so much and like, well, that's not my business. I don't want to pull the trigger on something because I don't know how bad it can get. It's better to be safe than sorry in these circumstances. If I see something that looks out of place, I should be willing to step up and go to a kid like, hey kid, are you in trouble? Young lady, are you in trouble? Is there something I can help you with? That's better safe than sorry, instead of just saying like, I don't want to be involved. 8 million kids, we cannot say, I don't want to be involved anymore. We cannot say that. 8 million, that's the entire city of Los Angeles and some that are being trafficked. So we cannot have this attitude of saying, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be a part of it. You know, you see the signs going on, get involved. Get involved. You know, if you see these things going on social media, you see women being projected in a certain way, especially when you see somebody you like, you know they look a little bit too young. Get involved, hit that report thing. Sometimes we don't want to be that guy, we don't want to be that person to hit the report, but that's the way you can get involved even on the smaller scale. So it doesn't always have to be you kicking in the door, going to do the rescue, but you reporting, you funding, you speaking out and using your voice, or whatever platform that God gave you to use it to be a voice to the voiceless. So that's why we're here today on July 30th, Anti-Human Trafficking Day, and in the future we got to keep this going. So it's easy to get fired up about something when there's an event going on and people are shouting it, but it's what you're going to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that. Until we see a real approach to this to put an end to human trafficking, let's keep being the voice, let's keep taking action.
Why else were you raising awareness?
As a victim, and to know that if no one has a voice, then I don't mind being the voice for the people. So anyone out there who's been a victim, don't be ashamed, stand tall, be strong, and tomorrow will come.